Okay, so I'm going to start this off with a question. What are some examples of things that everyone in society does? Think about. Give you time to wait. Pause the video and think about that. Okay, I'm going to assume that you thought about some stuff, but I'll give you some examples. Saying bless you when we sneeze, okay? Saying happy birthday or singing happy birthday when it's someone's birthday. That is something society, we as society as a whole, has collectively decided that we're going to do every time. So then I pose this question to you. Should we as a society continue to do something because we have done it for a long time? I'll be like Dora. I'll wait for your answer. Good answer. So we in class decided that it kind of depends, right? There's some stuff that I think is outdated and we should get rid of. But there's some stuff that works and we should keep it up, right? I'm telling you this because today we're going to talk about the Electoral College. And that is something that's been kind of discussed recently, whether we should get rid of it or not. So looking at this score, who won this basketball game? And I'll move this up so you can see a little better. So, who won this basketball game? So we have the Golden Warriors in the first quarter, 24, Rockets 10, second quarter 20, Rockets 24, third quarter Warriors 22, Rockets 28, fourth quarter Golden Warriors 30, Rockets 20. Okay, these are each points in each quarter. And then we have our final score of 96-82. So who won this basketball game? If you said Golden Warriors, you are correct. That is right. But what if I were to change it to this? What if I were to make the second and third quarters weighted more or worth more points than the first and fourth quarter? Then we have the Rockets winning by 2 points versus the Warriors, right? Do we think that's fair? If you said no, you're right? We don't play basketball like that. So this is kind of an example of what the Electoral College is. We have different states with different electoral points, and some states are worth more than others. So going into the Reconstruction Presidents, I'll move this back so you can see the whole thing. Here we go. We talked about Andrew Johnson already. Let's get into Ulysses S. Grant and Rutherford B. Hayes. So Ulysses S. Grant was also known as the Peace President. Okay, he was coming in right in the middle of the Reconstruction. Okay, right as people were trying to rebuild the country. So big yikes, big dumpster fire. We know him from the Civil War, right? He was this famous Union general. He is like Oprah in the sense that Confederate generals, he's trying to kind of give both sides equal benefits. Okay, he's trying to bring peace, and he goes about doing that by on the Confederate side granting Confederate generals pardons. Okay. We see that on the ex-enslaved people side, okay, so kind of the opposite side, him helping push the 15th Amendment across, which basically gave citizens the right to vote, and that right to vote could not be denied by race or the color of our skin, right? We also see a lot of violence in the South. So after the Civil War, like I said, things just didn't go back to normal. It's not like we had a light switch and once the war was over, we just were able to flick it off, right? There's still a lot of violence in the South. So what Grant does is he sends a bunch of troops to crush groups like the KKK who are kind of creating violence in the South. It's like if I were to give you a test and say, okay, I need you to sit quietly and not talk, and I need you to finish this test, and this test is the hardest test you've ever taken, and I give you all those rules, and then I leave the room. Are you going to do it? Be honest, we're not probably going to do that. I wouldn't, okay? So we have things happening in the South against the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment, who gave ex-enslaved people their freedom. Those aren't being enforced in the South, and because that, there's a lot of violence. So in order to enforce those laws and crush the violence, we see Grant sending troops, right, to kind of keep the peace there. Unfortunately, Ulysses S. Grant sees a lot of scandal in his presidency. He sees a lot of his friends and co-workers kind of committing fraud. Okay, they would take money from the government and use it for their own gain, which is illegal. That is fraud, which is very similar to what we saw in Dixon a couple years ago. This woman, Rita Crunwell, I don't know if you've heard of her. In Dixon, she stole like over $50 million from the city of Dixon in the span of like so many years. This chart shows that in the year between 2011 to 2012, she stole $3.2 million from the city, just in 1 year, okay? She takes all that money from the government, which is illegal, and puts it into her hobby, which is like quarter horse breeding or something. I have no idea. But so she steals that from the money from the city of Dixon, just 15 minutes down the road. That's a lot of money, period. That's a bunch of money, right, from the small town of Dixon, okay? So we see that these are kind of similar, right? That's why I'm comparing them. But ask your parents about this. If you don't know much about this, ask your parents about this, because I bet they know a lot. There's a really good documentary. It's called All the Queen's Horses. And my parents and my sister went and saw it actually in Dixon. They saw a screening of it. And what's crazy about that is they were actually in Dixon seeing this movie, and they said the tension in the room, you could cut it with a knife. It was so thick, and people were so angry, and this was years after this happened, right? So we see the end of his presidency, Ulysses S. Grant, between the scandal and how hard it is being president, he's ready to leave, okay? He's like, I can't wait to get the heck out of here. Unfortunately, when he leaves the presidency, we see him make a bad investment in his son's financial firm, okay? Turns out to be a bad investment, and he loses a bunch of his money to the point where he has like $80 to his name. Thankfully, Mark Twain, okay, famous author, wrote Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer, is able to come in and say, hey, Ulysses, why don't you write a little bit about yourself and your time in the war and sell it as a memoir. And Ulysses S. Grant is actually able to do that and get a lot of money back for his family. Unfortunately, we see Ulysses S. Grant pass away due to throat cancer. He actually finds out he has throat cancer by eating a peach. And what's interesting about that is I think it's like the acidity of the peach kind of like triggered it. I think it was always there, it's just that kind of made it more pronounced. And unfortunately, he's in a lot of pain for the rest of his life. I'm not saying that if you eat a peach, you will have throat cancer. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that it kind of triggered it and kind of made it more pronounced, and he died of throat cancer. So I think this is a quote that we can all kind of agree with. He says, especially making friends in middle school, it's kind of hard to do that, right? So let's just think of Ulysses S. Grant when he says, "The friend in my adversity I shall always cherish most. I can better trust those who have helped to relieve the gloom of my dark hours than those who are so ready to enjoy with me the sunshine of my prosperity." Okay, so basically saying, if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. And I think we can all take that into consideration, especially in middle school. Middle school's tough, guys. I know, I was once a middle schooler, just like you. So Rutherford B. Hayes, this is the next president. He actually went to bed thinking that he had lost the election. He was down 260,000 votes. He actually ends up losing the popular vote being basically, if you were to count up all the votes in the United States and just put those and pick the winner there, that would be the popular vote. But he wins the electoral vote, so he wins the election. With the disputed states, the electoral committee ends up giving those disputed states, meaning those states that there wasn't a clear winner or loser. Okay, it was kind of the Electoral Committee ends up giving those states to Rutherford B. Hayes. The House of Representatives had to confirm this deal though, so we kind of think maybe there's some shady business, right, happening there. So that's kind of what's happening there. And then I also have this meme here. So President Hayes actually gets rid of those troops that Ulysses S. Grant had put in the South to protect the enslaved people and ex-enslaved people and enforce the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment. He takes those troops out to kind of get some solid Southern votes. So people of color in the South are basically doomed because that was the one thing protecting them and enforcing that freedom. So in the next video, we will talk about the Electoral College, just because I don't want to overwhelm you with one video. So see you in the next one.